Hello, it's just an impromptu quick fix chat. Gonna just throw it open, but also Ben from Blackout Orchestra will be joining us. This is Tongues. I don't know if you can hear this. This is the new single from Blackout Orchestra, which is out now. I'm sure you know if you've been following anything whatsoever. Hi, Grace. And yeah, hopefully if people want to throw in any chat or conversations or want to be part of it, that's all good. Thank you. I didn't write it, but thanks for saying so. Yeah, so this is out on streaming all over the place. There's an edit, this version, and a remix by me. And then on Bandcamp, there's two bonus remixes by Nearfar and NZM Inc. And they're both awesome. So if you want to download it, then obviously you get those exclusively to Bandcamp at the moment. Cool, awesome, there you go, there we are. There's Ben, so let's see if we can... Will we even get to the chorus? Not. There you go. Hello. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, all good. We didn't even get to the chorus, as I said. I said we
Well,
wouldn't
yeah,
even get to
that's
the chorus.
it's a tease, right? It's
Yeah, exactly.
you got to go stream the song.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to hear more, or preferably even download it, and then you could like play it up to that bit. You could pause it. You could rewind it. You could make your own remix of it. You could do all sorts of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So do a
Yeah.
rap. I want to hear someone sample it and do like a rap song out of it. I would
I
probably release it. That's an open thing to any rappers out there. If you want to do a version of Tongues where you sample some of that, chances are, I won't say 1,000,000% because it might be awful, just the worst rap ever, or it might be like, I don't know, it maybe some, really bad, like, I don't know, a homophobic rapper decided to send something in and then it's all gone wrong or whatever. But like, in theory, and you know, presuming that it'd be something that we'd want to release, I'd probably release it. So get on with that if you're a rapper watching this. Yeah.
sort of fun fact about that is
Yeah.
the way the song came to be, it wasn't supposed to be a song necessarily. I was just playing with textures and sounds, right? So when I was working on what became the main beat to that song, I was trying to get sort of a slow and menacing hip hop beat because I was listening to a lot of Illmatic. Specifically, that beat would have been sort of derivative of New York State of Mind.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then I decided to put some bass over it, and the bass ended up sounding more, I don't know, Queens of the Stone Age-ish or something, and it became a
Yeah.
song. But it was trying to come up with a sort of menacing, slow hip hop beat. So I would love to hear a
Yeah.
rap
That
version.
go back round, make it full circle. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. What just out of interest, what kind of hip hop do you listen to?
Oh, all sorts. I mean, largely it would have been sort of 90s hip hop, whether it be Nas or Wu-Tang or Gangstar.
Oh,
I
wicked.
love Black Star, Talib Kweli,
Yeah.
in particular is just a favorite MC of mine. But I do listen to sort of newer stuff and pop leaning stuff. I really like, almost against my own better judgment, I really like Young Thug. Um,
Right. I can't I
there's just
can't comment, so I haven't heard any, so I
yeah,
can't
not,
judge.
Death Grips is great, and
Oh yeah, I
there's
like Death Grips. I like them,
yeah.
but I don't really see that as like almost like hip hop so much as just like some kind of noisy experimental music that happens to have like rapping primarily, if you get what I mean. I know that sounds weird. Maybe it's because like hip hop's been around for like a good chunk now. Do you know what I mean? Like there's like granddads of hip hop, if you know what I mean, at this point. So
Yeah.
maybe because it's got that far, I now see rap as just another way of vocalizing to a degree, maybe, especially with like the way that I guess pop music became kind of hip hop meets R&B meets a little bit of dance, and it became this kind of not that anyone who was a hardcore follower of any of those genres would be satisfied by the example of each of them in pop music, but you know, it kind of ended up being this hybrid thing. So in Australia, I always have this chat with Half Decent as well. Like, he doesn't really see himself as a hip hop artist, as a rapper, so much as, like, I guess a hip hop artist, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's sort of it's a little semantic because like I would think like no wave or I guess like Sonic Youth's noisier
yeah,
side. Would you call that rock and roll?
yeah,
But you know,
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
derivative of it is, but it's like in or an extension of, but it's not classically the genre per
yeah,
se. And you
exactly.
know, neither here nor there.
Yeah,
Good.
exactly.
Was it BB King who said there's only two types of music, good and bad?
Good and bad. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
he carried on playing until his last, like, kind of breath or whatever. So if I'm going to listen to anyone, it'll probably be him. I always like when the ABBA news came out of them doing this like lazy thing where they're like filming themselves and then CGIing themselves into a live performance. I was just like, tell it to BB King. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were like, oh, we're a bit old to play now. Do you know? Oh, do you know?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but yeah. So what you like? That's a good enough starting point. What else went in the pot for tongues?
Oh, lots of stuff. So like the bass was largely improvised, but I thought it ended up something sounding like something from Caius or like the first Queens of the Stone Age record.
Cool.
So that was part of it. Um, but it also had this sort of sexy vibe. So there's like a little bit of almost, I don't know, I think when I was working on sort of vocals and mood, I was thinking a little Sade.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Yeah, wicked. Oh,
you
awesome.
know,
Yeah,
stuff like
I
that.
get that. And there's that brilliant the link in there is that awesome Deftones cover of
Yeah.
Ordinary Love, which is like somehow alternative and rock, but yet is so faithful to the original at the
Yeah.
same time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so respectful. It has its own spin on it, and I wouldn't want it to be you know a carbon copy.
Yeah,
But it has its own vibe, but it is really, really faithful and
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, and like even when the jug 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 guitar comes in, you're like, oh, that's the Deftones bit, and then you go and listen to the original. It's like, no, that's in the
That's
original of
there.
the song.
Yeah.
so, so yeah, so that's yeah, and yeah, that's cool. That's really nice. Anything else? Like, I guess I get kind of like I guess the general willfulness to play with mood for such a long time. I got a Cure vibe from that.
Sweet.
Like it's a weird thing to say because Lullaby is such a unique, different, specific thing, but also because I'm really into the mixed up Cure album, which is like
Yeah.
12-inch versions, and so it's always like a good minute before like the song even comes in on those. So in a strange way, like that kind of slow tease and everything, it was maybe because it's kind of chilled but groovy, but also definitely alternative. Do you know what I mean? It like yeah, yeah, I got a bit of that. Maybe a little Nine Inch Nails, a little
Yeah.
bit of fragile
So
kind of.
that's exactly what my best friend and guitar player from Dearly Bereft, my previous project, Mike, when I sent it to him when I first sort of had a demo version,
Mm,
he said it was very fragile.
yeah.
But when you're talking about The Cure, I think this record, which you know I'm talking about it, but nobody's really heard it yet. But to me, this record as a whole is not intentionally, but sort of mood wise and with those sort of longer intros. To me, it's very 17 Seconds or Faith era
Right.
Cure
Yeah, yeah.
in its sustained mood and
Yeah, yeah.
sort of post-punky sparingness. But
Yeah, yeah,
Tongues is
yeah.
not the greatest example of that, but there's always
No,
Cure in anything I do.
the space in it is the fascinating part though, really. And I think that's where A, why the song works as well as it does, and then B, also that thing that I think why a lot of artists maybe don't I don't know whether they know when to, and I'm speaking for myself as well, definitely, but I don't know when to stop in terms of like, you can keep putting things on as long as there's any space in the mix, you can keep cramming like little sounds in everywhere. And you've with this, it's a really good sense of you knowing just when to kind of go, okay, that's I think that's already done now, or do you know what I mean? Or that's all that needs to be in it now. I'll mix it or whatever the process is or whatever.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's actually, I mean, like, it's kind of working backwards. What I usually do and what I did with that song as well is I will layer every possible idea into it.
Hmm.
And often to my own frustration when it comes to working on it later, I'll then usually I get all the music done and then I'll put like vocals over it. And if things clash, it's a case of like having built it up X number of layers and then
Yeah,
putting a vocal on and being like, well, I don't need that. I don't
yeah.
need that. I don't need that, and stripping
Hmm.
it back down to what it needs. So yeah, my tendency is to overdo it
It's
and then chip away
fascinating
at it.
to me. It's fascinating to hear that you work like that because that's pretty much exactly how I work. But I have nowhere near, well, to my mind at least, I have nowhere near as much success like removing, like knowing what I'm supposed to take out again. If you know, like all my vocals have like five vocals going on at the same time. Like let alone
Well,
like a layer of instruments that you'd need an orchestra to actually do a faithful representation of if you went out, and played
yeah,
it live.
that's it's all even now it's still like that is sort of in there. I know that like when it comes to the choruses, so you've got sort of my main vocal, I do an octave vocal, I probably have two harmonies in there, and then Morgan probably has two or three
Yeah, yeah,
harmonies in there. And so it's all largely still in there, but a lot of it just comes down to balancing it. And so trying to keep main through line with the vocal, but then like the other, a lot of the other harmonies or whatever is just to sort of strengthen or bolster or add
yeah, yeah.
texture. So a lot of it is it stays in there. It's just a case of, and I'll do it where it's like I really like this harmony, so it's way up front in the mix, and then I'll come back a couple weeks later and I'll be like, that really doesn't need to be such a focal point and
Yeah,
bring it
yeah.
down. But at first I'm excited about it, so I'm like, oh, yeah, that's got to be in there, and that's got to be in there, and eventually better taste comes
But
into the
yeah,
process.
what would you say is like? What would you say is the time? I mean, obviously, it's going to be different with a lot of stuff, but generally speaking, how would you say it goes between you, say, writing a thing, sticking a load of stuff on, then you kind of get to a mix phase, and then you leave some space, come back to mix, and then you're like, okay, it's done. What would you? How long would you say the processes, each of those processes are?
I mean, it's dependent per song, and I don't work on one thing at a time.
Mm,
So, for example, with tongues, um, most of the instruments to that I got excited about and started working on in February of last year. And I had essentially an instrumental mix, and I was like, I dig this.
yeah,
Not sure what to do with it. I'm going to put it on the shelf. I went away, I wrote and finished the rest of the record, and that was actually the last one that I came back to
right, right.
um, in terms of that. I had tried a couple of different sort of vocal ideas in the sort of in between that didn't quite fit. And it was finally sort of at the end of the process. I'm like, I really want that to be in there, assuming I can make it good. And
Yeah.
it was kind of down to the wire. So it took, 8 months or something for
How?
that song to complete itself, but
Yeah.
in short bursts.
Yeah, how difficult is it when you've put like some lyrics to something and you've gone through and you've done some vocals something like it like and then you're like, oh, this doesn't work. Like that to me throws up like so hello exit by the way. But yeah, that to me throws up some real like, oh my God, like what? Like what am I gonna so hang on, I've already done it. This is a song now. Like what I'm gonna do a new song over the old song and forget about the lyrics for that other song. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many like so I have a real like the erasing of the work that's already done. I have such problems with that. How do you feel about all of that? Are you more
Uh,
brutal?
well, I sort of go both ways. Often, uh, if I have an idea, I know pretty quickly, in the demoing process, if the idea is good or bad. But then when I finish the demo, the first version of a song, it's often I know the idea is good, but it's bad. So there's been a number of these songs where I've gone and I've been like, I need to redo the vocal or change some lyrics, and I'll go back and I'll redo it, and I'll still not be happy with it. But I'll think it's finished, and I'll be like, ah, there's that. Maybe it won't make it onto the record or whatever.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point later, often I'll go back to it, and I'm like, if I can just nail a good vocal take, or if I can just change a few lines to make this
Well, yeah.
better, or then I kind of have to force myself and trick myself into it, but I'll be like, it's either going to be good or it's not going on the record.
Hmm.
Here's your last chance
Yeah, yeah,
to do something with it. Do something or don't. And so
yeah.
then I'll agonize over it for, a week. Um, a lot of songs on this record, there were a lot of times when I went through even the same lyrics and same melody, but where I took a vocal, I thought it was done because I'm meticulous with the music, but with my own vocals, because I'm not a great singer in general, I get a little lazy. So
Hmm.
I'll finish a vocal track and I'll be like, well, that's as good as I'm gonna get it. It's fine. Like, and later on, I'll be like, no, I can do better,
Yeah, yeah.
and make it work. And I mean, I have a handful of half completed demos that were supposed to be on this record that
Right.
just never got to that good point.
Yeah, yeah.
So
How what would you say your backlog is like? Is it large, or do you tend to be quite good at working on stuff and just finishing the things rather than having like a billion unfinished things sitting around or whatever?
no, no, I have a billion.
Yeah,
I consider it sort of a sketchbook, similar to like I was mentioning with Tongues. I
mm,
had finished the music mostly last February and
yeah,
then couldn't come up with anything right away. Um, so I have a lot of times I'll start something to try a production style
yeah,
or to see if I can,
yeah.
do one thing
Explore
or
a
another.
fascination or something. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. So I'll have like for this record alone, I probably have another 12 half completed song ideas that just
yeah,
didn't keep my interest long enough,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. Or the final piece didn't come in at the right time that it needed to. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And I,
When
I
you,
think a great example of that, like we're fans of Radiohead,
yeah,
something like Nude that was started for around OK Computer
was
and they
it
couldn't
really?
get a version that they liked, or True Love Waits, same kind
Yeah,
of thing.
that kicked about for
Much later
ages.
albums that it came together. Like
Yeah,
so I hold on to those bits because you never know, but I wasn't able to get it to where I needed it to be for that moment.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's and do you do all your vocals at home and stuff as well?
Yeah, I do
So do you have to
everything.
time that like according to like neighbors and things like that and everything as well? So
I try to keep it pretty respectful.
yeah,
I try not to record after 11 p.m., particularly on weekdays. I won't start until like say 10 a.m.
yeah,
Uh, so often when it comes to really working on vocals, I'll set aside a chunk of time on the weekends to
yeah.
to do that. Um, but
I suppose
the
it's
sort of
effectively it's a bit like the studio anyway, where like I don't know whether you've been in that like horrible situation where you're in the studio and the clock's ticking away and you've got to get the vocals done anyway, and then whatever you do in that time is basically what ends up being the eternal document of how that song goes to like anybody who listens to it. Do you know what I mean? Which is like
yeah.
quite a heavy burden, like for me. I always feel like, wow, okay, so you're doing the definitive version now. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so I feel awkward a lot, like, kind of like, okay, now unless you're particularly inspired to do it and you're feeling particularly like singy and everything, then it's like, okay, I'm gonna now try and do some vocals because this is the space that I've got or whatever. I do find it kind of, a bit weird and awkward sometimes. And so I'll end up with some kind of a vocal, but I wouldn't say it's like a lot of my, like guide vocals end up being backing vocals and things like that, if you know what I mean, because they're pretty good for backing vocals, but they're not, you know,
Well,
like something I'd,
it's happened a lot on this record even. There's a song on the new record, Unfound,
mm,
which I guess is going to be the next single,
yeah,
um, which I put down a guide vocal, and then I tried for months because I've been also taking vocal lessons just
oh,
to
cool.
strengthen up my voice to a degree.
Hmm.
So with each thing that I was learning through the vocal lessons, I was like, I can make this better, and I kept trying to redo the vocals, and it ended up that there was something about that scratch track that,
There was one.
yeah, it was imperfect, but it had the right
Captured the mood.
emotion.
Yeah.
So that's what ended up on the record. And similarly, there's another song, the last song on the record, um, called "The First Time,"
Mm.
which was just trying to get down a basic rough song idea. So, and this was late at night and with the neighbors and everything. So I
Yeah,
had
yeah,
the microphone turned up really, really loud, playing very quietly on acoustic
yeah,
guitar and
yeah.
just kind of very softly doing the vocals. And that ended up the whole track
Being
itself.
one. Yeah, yeah.
It was, I was like,
Hmm.
nothing else is going to capture that mood the same way,
Hmm.
even if I can do it technically better.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, there's definitely times like that. I do end up keeping a couple of bits and bobs, but it's a lot about I think that comes back more to the like Prince would like just if he had an idea for a song, he'd go in and work on that song and finish that song, and then when it was finished, he'd stop, but he wouldn't stop
Yeah.
until it was finished, and then he'd just vault it and go right, okay, done, boom, off, mix it, like that's it, and in most cases he wouldn't a lot of the time come back to it unless he particularly wanted to rework it entirely or and something like that. So it's more like he was documenting his feeling or whatever than like for someone that you would imagine was probably doing multiple billions of takes and trying to strive for some kind of perfection. He was actually just really bloody good and but happened to be
Yeah.
just kind of like almost just throwing it down, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I think there's striking that balance. I guess it's each recording's different, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that it's you can really go either way on it. There's an Ani DeFranco lyric, which is people used to make records as in the record of an event, the event of
Yes.
people playing
Yeah.
music in a room, which is valid.
Hmm.
But then Ben Folds, I listen to a Ben Folds podcast about creativity a
Right. Yeah.
lot, and one of the things he said is he looks at it as like jazz records, for example, are recording an event, recording a
Yes.
performance,
Yeah.
and rock records are the document of an idea,
Right. Yeah.
which I think is a pretty
But
fair way. And so I go back and forth in terms of which, for each
yeah.
individual song, kind
Yeah.
of which it is. Does this capture a moment, or do I have an idea that I could capture better in
Yeah.
if I worked on this more?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't go like if it was just all the uh the event, the document. I love Annie DeFranco as well. So like I'm not fighting with her or anything. She'd probably beat me up
Yeah.
as well, I reckon. But like she's tough cookie. But yeah, the recording of an event. If like then you wouldn't have like a Sergeant Pepper's or anything of this kind of nature then would you, where it's like literally a construction that was made in a studio that had no intention to be played live and things like that. So
Yeah.
rock and roll has to be at the very least both, do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's that sort of difference between like a Steve Albini who records the
hmm.
band as they sound in the room, versus a George Martin or anything like that, where it's like creating and constructing this more elaborate sort of work.
Oral
And I think
picture,
both
yeah,
are
yeah.
equally valid. I don't think they cancel each other out. I think it's
Hmm.
just a matter of situationally or per song per project,
Yeah, yeah.
which
Especially when
approach
you
makes
hear
sense.
Thin Lizzy's Live and Dangerous and realize the whole thing was recorded in the studio.
Right. I'm
Oh,
gonna do
wow,
that
no
one of
wonder
these
they
days.
sound so good.
Just like get a perfect recording and add crowd sounds in and like I'm gonna do that one of these days.
Yeah. So and yeah, so what other stuff? Because obviously, like one would imagine that like I guess on the outside of things, Blackout Orchestra seems like hugely confessional and hugely personal and everything. And I'm not saying in any way that it isn't, but are there other ideas that come from like I don't know stuff you're reading or movies that you watch or whatever? Because obviously it's like there's such a lot made out of the personal connection in your music that one would imagine that it was all just diary, diary, diary. Do you know what I mean? But I was wondering if there's other things that kind of, come in and affect things and inspire
Not
things.
not really. I mean, I do think that that's a valid approach, but that's just I've never been able to. I've always had sort of um, dreams or aspirations as a kid that I wanted to be a writer, but I can't write a story. I can't write a character. I can't seem to access sort of creativity that isn't 100% my own lived experience. And I think that's a limitation. I don't think that that's the way it has to be.
Right.
And I think people do it very well of creating stories and ideas but it's just not something I've ever been
Yeah.
able
Yeah.
to do really. So it does really,
Or even
everything
like
comes out of,
personal things that come off of a like it's this weird example to say, but and it didn't end. Well, yeah. Sometimes I might read a comic. Say, for example, I'll keep it vague so I don't have to explain like a long situation.
yeah.
But like I might read like a comic or something, and just a thought process that's in that comic, or some idea or kernel of an idea or something becomes like, oh yeah, like that becomes like something I feel like I need to expand on in my own from my own side or whatever. Do you?
If anything, it's sort of the inverse of that, where the inspiration or idea is always going to come from a personal thought or experience, but I may exaggerate it based on other influences. So,
Right.
thinking of, for example, of Unfound, the next
Hmm.
song that we've got coming out, that's it's came from this relationship, friendship that I had with someone in high school, and just sort of thinking about where I've ended up and where they may have ended up. I haven't had any connection with them
Yeah,
in
yeah.
decades. But it's not 100%. It sort of tells the story of these divergent paths, but I actually have no idea what her path is.
Right.
Um, so I will exaggerate and sort of create a story around that character
Yeah, yeah. Using
to
that
a
as
degree, but
your
it's
emotion as a springboard.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
It is still an extremely or Siren Song is another example from the last record
Yeah.
where the song is about seeing someone get in a bike accident and fall into a coma, but you have fallen in love with this person who's now in a coma
Right. Yeah, yeah.
after witnessing this accident, and that's not a personal story. That's not something that ever happened to me, but
Is
the
it
idea
happened to
was,
Sandra Bullock in While You Were Sleeping though?
oh, there you
Have
go.
you ever seen that? It's
No, actually.
Bill Pullman and Sandra Bullock sees Bill Pullman have an accident, and then like takes him to the hospital, I think, and then just is with him whilst he's in his coma, forms this kind of like weird like attachment to him whilst he's in coma, and then he wakes up, and then like they have a relationship or something weird like that. I went to a
That's
lot
so
of really
strange. I've
weird
never
rom
seen that
coms when I
film.
was younger, just to go, just to get out of the house and be in the cinema or whatever, like it's just like, oh, well, let's just go to the cinema or whatever. So I ended
Yeah.
up seeing a lot of weird, like awful 90s rom coms and stuff. So yeah, but yeah, that is
Yeah, no,
actually the
that's
plot to that movie. So dig it out sometime when you're really bored.
well, hey, plausible deniability at this point. I have to
Yeah.
never watch it because I've essentially written the same story. Um, but but that story, the whole idea was just kind of exaggerating the idea of being in a relationship where you're 100% all in, but the other person is completely distant
Yeah.
and checked out, right?
Yeah.
So it's always coming from the personal idea and then exaggerating or
Using
creating a
that.
story around that.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Wicked. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's about as many questions as I had about like anything, but and I didn't want this to be like a the longest, most interview-esque kind of thing, so much as a catch up and stuff like that. But I was also like, obviously, I wanted to chat with you about Batman because
Yes.
that's that's important, isn't it? So,
It
so
is. It really is.
but yeah, so like first off, before you say what you think of the Batman, um, like tell me a bit about how your relationship with Batman. But yeah, like what just how you got into whenabouts and what kind of stuff you're into, and I don't know favorite films and graphic novels, I guess.
Yeah. Well, there's so I mean, as a kid, I grew up on Batman 66, and I was of just that right age where the 89 Batman was essentially my Star Wars.
Yeah,
I saw it and it blew my mind, and so that's where it sort of stems from, and I think that's sort of my touchstone for my Batman would have
yeah,
been, the 89 Batman and the comics that were coming out around that time.
yeah,
Um, from there, it in terms of the media, it's still like the animated series. I loved, and I
yeah.
own the full series and watch it regularly to this day. Um, all the other films from then on, I hadn't had a great relationship with until I saw Batman Begins,
Mm,
um, which I thought was at the time I watched it and I was like, that was fine, that was passable.
yeah,
I dug it. But I loved when The Dark Knight was coming out, there was so much hype around it, and especially after Heath Ledger
yeah.
died, that I was just like, I'm interested in this, but there's no way it's going to live up to the hype.
Right.
And when I went and saw it in the theater, it did. To
Yeah,
me,
yeah, it
anyway. I
absolutely
was just
did,
like,
didn't
this
it?
is
Yeah.
brilliant. I like my Batman ground level. I don't like him dealing with cosmic threats and stuff. I like
Right.
him to
Yeah.
be on the streets of Gotham. Um, I like some degree of allegory.
Hmm.
So it kind of hit the right spots for me. And um, The Dark Knight Rises coming out afterwards, not as perfect a film, but I really
Mm.
appreciated the risks that they took with it. It's sort of
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's not the greatest adaptation of Batman, that trilogy, but they're great films and a great um, story from beginning to end. That middle chapter
Yeah.
is the strongest, but I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that it works very well as a whole.
Yeah.
And I don't even count the Ben Affleck Batman. They're
Right.
not my kind of. I'm not into action spectacle and you know gods and aliens fighting Batman kind of thing.
Right.
It's
Okay.
not so much
Interesting.
my
Yeah. Yeah.
thing.
I mean, I'm not like a massive DC person. I'm probably a Joker person first, then a Batman person, then I guess some subsidiary bits of DC. And I like the idea of Superman, and I love those, Christopher Reeve movies like a lot because
Yeah.
I was a kid during them, and they were like amazing. Like when you were a kid, it was just like, oh, that's the greatest thing. But yeah, I mean, Batman '89 is like my favorite film of all time. So for anybody who hasn't heard me say that a million times, yeah, it's the perfect aligning of the planets. And then so one would say then that, oh, and what kind of what are the comics that you like? Which kind of, oh yeah, nice.
There we go.
Well played. I've got, actually, this is covered up as well, but I've got the French Batman Forever poster there as well. So yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
it's weirdly got an almost like subliminal marketing for Moon Knight listed in
That's
there.
awesome.
Not that Moon Knight's anything like Batman. Shh, he's not. He's nothing like him. But yeah, so what kind of comics and graphic novels are your touchstones for like Batman?
I mean, it's largely the sort of the classics. I like I really like actually Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, that's
Um,
my second favorite after Killing Joke, probably.
yeah. Uh, Killing Joke obviously is fantastic.
Yeah. Mm.
Little controversial, but I do really like the Red Hood storyline
Right. Yeah.
um, as it came out in the comics, and there was a lot
Hmm.
of good character moments in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be honest, so I do read a fair amount of Batman. I'm not the biggest fan of a
Hmm.
lot of the Batman comics. Year One, obviously, another
Yeah.
classic, and
Yeah.
so I have that series. Year Two, which is I guess not canon anymore,
Oh,
is
is it not?
interesting, but no, I think that got sort of wiped out with Long Halloween.
Oh, really? That's interesting. So is Long
Yeah, Year
Halloween not
Two.
canon anymore then?
No, Long Halloween is, but Year Two,
Oh, got erased by
yeah,
Long Halloween. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I
yeah.
guess so. Yeah.
Bear with me. Is this here we go. Where's my Year Two? Where are you? I've got the single issues. So
Right, really.
we got, yeah, there's year one. Yeah, like, can I turn my thing
Thing
around? It's not
around,
gonna let
yeah.
me. Um, but yeah, so here's what was year two, the controversial
Oh
cover there.
yeah, classic.
So that's been kind
Classic.
of wiped out
Yeah, yeah.
of continuity, but I actually really like the risks that it took.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I like, well, this is why I was kind of like, we'll end up on the movie, I guess. Like, it's become like Batman is the one superhero that I really am just, whether I think I'm kind of resolved with it or whatever, that I'm just gonna see someone's version of Batman whenever you see it. And
Yeah.
it doesn't really bother me now. You can almost have any version of Batman, and I just know it's a version and there's a billion other versions. So it's become very much like the comics, where I wouldn't say I'm like, hardcore, got read tons, but I've read, what, 20 odd graphic novels and then X amount of runs, or notable storylines or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
but then you're always, whether it's, I don't know, yeah, as you say, like Alan Moore or Frank Miller or whoever else, they're all going to have like a very different take on the dude. But it Batman seems to somehow work with that, whereas I'm not sure every superhero does necessarily. You know?
Yeah, I think that both Batman, the sort of two big ones for me are Batman and X-Men. And I think X-Men lends itself well to that too, to sort of different writers who take on the run and what their vision is. Obviously, Claremont is
Yeah, I just think of it
you
as
know,
Claremont, being honest. It's just like Claremont,
there's
Claremont, Claremont. Any classic story is probably by him.
now Grant Morrison did a great run. He's problematic, obviously, but Joss Whedon did a great run.
Right.
Um, and the current comics, Jonathan Hickman. I'm
Yeah,
not
I mean,
actually a
I
big
like
fan of his current series, but I
Powers
like that
and
he's
Powers and you mean post Powers and thingy? What is it?
yeah, Powers of X and
Something else
not
of
House of X,
X. House of X. House
House
of
of
X.
X.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So of course,
yeah.
because House of M. Duh. Yeah, but
So they're both like I'm not a big fan of his run and the story itself
mhm.
so much as I am. I respect that he's doing something different with it, and even
Yeah,
if
I
it's not
like the
my cup of tea,
move.
that
I
it's
like the
good.
move more than where it actually ended up necessarily leading us, if you know what I mean. I was quite
Yeah.
fascinated with the setup of House and Powers, and the like the amount of attention that he'd obviously paid to the universe. Oh wow, cool.
I'm just
So
as we chat.
would you
Talking.
agree? Would you agree with me that we're really lucky that Hugh Jackman just continuously played Wolverine, because whether each of those films are any good or not, you still just have this kind of long, like this long time of just watching the same dude play that hero. And I think that's like, now that we've seen so many Spider-Man, and they're all now even flying into the same film and stuff. And like, obviously Batman, we're going to see what, two or three like different types of
Within the
Batman
next
this
like
year.
2 years. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like even the worst X-Men movies that Hugh Jackman was in, he was always
Pretty good.
giving his all in it, you know? Like
Yeah,
he was
what was the one
dedicated to
where
the
he
character.
was what was the one where he was locked up in the cage and he was Weapon X, and he just came out, and even though he was,
Apocalypse, yeah.
yeah, I mean, he was really good. That might be the best bit of that movie.
Oh yeah. Well, and like X-Men Origins Wolverine is a terrible film, but he's charismatic in it. It's
Right.
just
I
the
love
script and everything happening around him is
I
awful.
love Liev Schreiber in that film.
Oh,
I
he's
came out
great
of
too.
that film thinking, oh, killed it as Creed. Like, Sabretooth is now the coolest. After
What
being a bit of a beast man in X-Men
in the
1, they
first
just
one?
left him
Yeah.
to be like the dumb hairy muscle. He was like Beastman in Master of the Universe movie, basically. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Well, and that's what sucks about that film is like you had the perfect Wolverine's origin is interesting by default.
mm,
Um, they had great actors, playing the two main roles.
Hmm.
How could they screw it up so badly? But it was just, I mean, it's like largely, I think the writer's strike and everything like that was happening around that time. But it, I was, that broke my heart at the time. But now
Yeah,
I'm like, I'll still watch it now and then because Hugh Jackman's fun in it, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well, oh, on which one specifically? Sorry, on X-Men
The
1?
Origins one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Oh no, the
yeah.
Origins one is so that's got so many missteps. Like it's
Oh,
and the
absolutely. It's
but
awful.
Blob is good. Blob is done well in it. I just don't know
Bear
why
with me,
Will
I'm
I
gonna be in the dark for a
Am's
sec.
also in it.
Yeah, it's very
That's
questionable.
a bad sign of a X-Men movie when Will I Am joins the team. I think.
Yeah, I mean, he was in there because they were popular at the time,
Yeah,
I guess.
that's the
Like,
last thing you need, isn't
yeah.
it? Yeah. So, what did you think of the Batman then?
Uh,
Because
I,
judging by all that you've said, one would kind of automatically think that you think it was amazing, right?
one would think. It hits on paper all the criteria that I would have for a Batman film. But I told Morgan we went to see it together, and I told
Yeah,
her I respect it a lot more than I liked it.
right.
I found it kind of boring. Um, it was pretty one note. I
Mm,
didn't feel there was like the reviews were glowing, so I thought there would be some real character moments and depth there, and I didn't find that. I found most of the acting, I thought they were great actors, but I found most
mm,
of the acting wooden just because there wasn't much to any of the characters.
right.
Um, yeah, I was pretty bored through it.
Yeah,
But I respect it. I'm glad they're taking it seriously, and I think they love the character and loved
yeah,
making the film, but it didn't capture anything for me.
right. That's interesting. I enjoyed it more than you, but I'm not. I don't necessarily need everything so realistic in a strange way either. So I kind of. I'm not saying that I want us particularly to go back to 66 level or anything, but like or even Joel Schumacher necessarily, but I kind of don't mind if sometimes there's an element that isn't so believable to me. So I did kind of enjoy it overall. I quite liked some of the Western, like when it sometimes felt like a Western, like when he came down the stairs and you just heard the clump, clump, clump. And it was kind of had like the tension of some badass gunfighter is coming into town or something like that. Do you know what I mean? I quite liked some of
Yeah,
those like moments where it did feel like a bit more like classic filmmaking. And
yeah,
I thought, yeah, some of the casting was good. Although, as you say, they were almost like a lot of the time I felt like they were left a little blank so that you could project your like feelings onto them in a strange way. Like that if they put too much into it, then it might detach it from you. So you didn't feel like you're Batman. Do you know what I mean? Or you didn't
yeah,
feel like you're Catwoman or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So it's like
yeah.
they kept it a little light on the details so that you could kind of put yourself in their shoe maybe or something.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see because I liked this less, but my feelings of kind of ambivalence but respect for it
Yeah,
was not similar to what I felt when I first saw Batman Begins. And The Dark Knight was brilliant.
sure.
So
So where it
now that
leads
they've
is
laid this
also the
groundwork,
interesting.
yeah, there's potential for this universe. I'll go see the next one.
Yeah.
I don't
And
hate
you
it,
weren't
and then they
all
could do something
interested
great with
in
it.
and you weren't all interested in Ben Affleck, so that's actually a move
Yeah,
towards getting you. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. The only thing I liked about Ben Affleck's Batman, I liked the costume.
Right, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't mind a couple of things about it. Like I don't mind a big beat 'em up anyway. I quite like it. But yeah, did you miss Batman having a song? Because it was really like I miss Batman having a song. Prince did songs, and then U2 and Susie and the Banshees and Smashing Pumpkins and everything. And I kind of miss like it was quite cool because Batman became like the new Bond in a way for me. So like in that respect of like, oh yeah, I care more like about the Batman song than I do about a new Bond song kind of thing.
Well,
But
I mean, you could just pretend something in the way is new.
Yeah, I guess it's something in the Wane, as my brother punned. He called the film "Something in the Wane," which I thought was,
Cute.
yeah, pretty cool.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, actually, I guess it's got that one song, hasn't it, that we can just, I guess, hinge it all on that. It's funny
Yeah,
that
and
he's like that age and he's just sitting around listening to Nirvana. Like that's
and Nirvana transcends. It doesn't matter if you're poor or rich or
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know
It's
what
like,
you decade you grew up in. It's always Nirvana's going to be there.
yeah, it's good to know, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, yeah, okay. I guess that counts as a chat, doesn't it?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
I mean, I could go on forever, but
likewise. I mean,
yeah.
we started talking about. That's why I'm kind of trying to call it like any kind of time, because otherwise we could just do another hour on just talking about superheroes, probably. But
Yeah. We should get a podcast together at some point where we talk about
maybe when we both have enough time to actually, yeah, do that.
exactly.
We should definitely. For now, the people of Quickfixz, the followers of Quickfixz Recordings, get the dubious benefits
Yeah, that's
of
right.
our time. Yeah, wicked, man. Well, yeah. For anybody who hasn't been paying attention, Blackout Orchestra Tongues is out now. The album's not out for months, but we will have a new single out. What, couple of months from now? Is that, or is it less even?
Yeah, less like a month.
Less.
It towards the end of April is what we're going to
Yes,
say.
that's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, so keep an eye out for that. Go and check out. There's tons of loads and so much Blackout news. Being honest, going to be coming out over the next little while. So, like the emails come in, and it's just like I haven't even got time to like
Yeah.
post them. You're actually more popular than I can keep up with. So that's a good thing.
You know, it's exciting. It's pretty neat and overwhelming in a good way that we've had so much support.
Well, it's
Granted,
well
you know, I mean,
deserved. It's
well,
well
thank you.
deserved. It's great stuff. It's like it's good music. That's what we need, right? So
Well, there's no dearth of good music out there, though. I mean, it's just everybody,
finding it.
including us to some degree, is out there under the radar
Yeah.
plugging away.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. And on that note, also check out the Bandcamp um, because it's got two extra remixes from Near Far and NZM Inc. And yeah,
Fantastic remixes. Yeah.
and Bandcamp is a big help. And thanks to the people who have been buying it on the Bandcamp, it's super appreciated. So
Yeah,
yeah,
very much so.
yeah, cool, man, wicked. Well, good chat. And yeah, I'll chat with you before there's even another Batman film out.
All right, sounds fair.
Okay, wicked. Cool. Take care. Have a good day, dude.
You too.
Bye. Okay,
Bye.
let's play a bit more. Let's see if we can get to the chorus this time. So yeah, cool. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll try and do a bit more of this. We might try and keep it a bit more impromptu these days, rather than big planned things. Thank you so much for watching, whether it's at the time or afterwards. And please do check out quickfixrecordings.com for more info on all our bands. We've got loads of cool stuff coming up over the next little while. As we said, loads of Blackout Orchestra. We've got Days single coming up and a Sexy Wild East single coming up. So yeah, thanks very much and have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye. You're not going to get to the chorus. You'll have to go and stream it.